Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ron Wallace here with Balling Down South Sports Network, here with another episode of the interview. Now, my next guest is a graduate from Southern University, where he has a bachelor's degree in marketing and management, also has a master's degree in communication. Played 4 years there at Southern in basketball. He was the team captain. Still hold records in the record books there at Southern for steals, assists, minutes played. I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, he is no stranger to being a leader on the court, leader in any profession that he has held. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Grambling State University's new VP of Intercollegiate Athletics, Dr. Trayveon Scott. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. Just running, going back and forth, and making sure that we can meet with our alums in the Baton Rouge area. So I had to step out and get in a car. So I want to excuse myself for being in the car, but I'm really excited about the opportunity ahead. We've got great things in store at Grambling State University.
Well, sir, for the people that don't know you, that possibly watching this interview, talk a little bit where you went to high school, real quick, because I know your resume is so long. I saw it. Just touch a little bit on about high school, then you going into college playing, and then you coming back to your own alma mater to teach before even being an athletic director or a VP.
Okay. I can tell you, much like the situation in terms of the infrastructure of Grambling State University, I attended Southern University Laboratory School, or Southern Lab as we call it, in Baton Rouge, and played for legendary coach Joe Hawkins, who retired at over 1,100 wins and the winningest coach in the state of
Wow.
Louisiana. And so a lot of the things that I've been able to learn from him regarding leadership and being able to get out in front and not trying to fit in, but to stand out are all things, valuable things that I learned as a part of Joe Hawkins' program. We won 5 state championships during my tenure there from 8th grade to 12th grade, and all in sum, I think we were 10 or 11 in a row. All right, so they had won 4 or 5 before I got there, 4 or 5 when I was there, or 5 when I was there, and then another 3 or 4 when I left. And so we had that process and that program running. They're getting it back up to speed now in terms of rebuilding that winning tradition. And so I play for Joe Hawkins. I'm still, in touch with his family as well. And so from there, I signed a scholarship to Texas A&M University as a student athlete. I was a top 100 basketball player. And I
Wow.
neglected to mention that the Southern Lab team that I played on was the last nationally ranked Southern Lab team that we had.
Wow.
And so we had a ton of success, which led me to Texas A&M. Obviously, with my knowledge and understanding of the Southern University system, it made sense once I decided to come back to Baton Rouge and finish my collegiate playing days, that I transferred back to Southern University and transferred back with a gentleman by the name of Tommy Green was the head coach. The now athletic director at Southern University, Roman Banks, was the associate head coach. And so that kind of started that relationship out. Now, there was a coaching transition, and we brought in, I think, Ben Job at the time, another one of the stalwarts in men's basketball, a legend in his own right. And so, I had the opportunity to play for Joe Hawkins. Tommy Green was a legend in his own right, and then transitioning to Ben Job with Roman Banks along. And so I had this understanding and knowledge of what it takes to be a successful college basketball program, and how that transitioned overall into my career now as an athletics administrator. And so we had another coaching transition to, I believe, Michael Grant, another outstanding coach in his own right. And then from there, during that time and during that tenure, I served as a student assistant and then graduate assistant in the Department of Athletics. So that kind of got
Wow.
me started as it relates to my career in athletics as a student athlete. I think you mentioned I have degrees in marketing and management. And so, my passions have always been the business and actually sport. And so, in understanding and developing a love and a passion and an adoration for athletics, it allows us to do all of those things. And so, there was a little bit of a change in landscape with regard to opportunities in college athletics at the time. And so, I found myself with all the leadership experience that I gained to be able to move in corporate America. And so did some really great things there. I believe I was the youngest assistant vice president for AmSouth Regions Bank. We did
Wow.
financial services, obviously, at State Farm, and until I got my opportunity to come back into athletics full time in 2011 under the leadership of Sandy Pugh. And so she was responsible for my reintroduction into the athletics administrative arena. And so her first two hires, and I'll say the name again, was Roman Banks, and then she hired me. And so when Sandy transitioned back to basketball, we brought in Dr. William Broussard, another mentor of mine, maybe one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. And that kind of sparked my interest and challenged me to try to do a little bit more academically as it relates to being able to seek and then achieve my doctorate in education and sport administration. So
Wow.
learned a lot. Again, I consider myself lucky to have a Joe Hawkins, a Ben Jobe, a Tommy Green, a Roman Banks, a Sandy Pugh, and then a William Broussard. And then learned and understood the business from the ground level. So I started out at Southern as almost a quasi special assistant to the athletic director, if you will. My position was more or less an ambassador to the program. Obviously, through my experiences as a student and student athlete on the campus at the laboratory school, gave me credibility in addition to my athletic prowess on the hardwood. And so alums knew me, stakeholders knew me, sponsors knew me, and so that was a seamless transition. At least we thought. And then we started obviously moving into many of the academic issues that were well documented and well chronicled with regard to academic progress rate and all of the different variables of those penalties that Southern University had historically faced since the late 2010, early 2011, right? And so I found myself in a position, knowing and understanding course curricula and things of that nature, and taking on that project and really starting to build an academic unit that would allow us, out of the throngs of NCAA violations. So we were able
Wow.
to maneuver out of those arenas and had an issue with a lack of institutional control as it related to academic eligibility certification. I believe there was a story out about.
You there, Dr. Scott?
Can you hear me?
I
So
hear you.
there
I
was a,
got you.
there was a there was an issue with us, being able to adequately certify. We had some things going on with our user interface system, and so we were right back to where we came from with lack of institutional control, many violations, and things of that nature. And so, again, I was called upon to try to remedy some of those situations as it related to building the institution's infrastructure to rid the athletics department of those issues. And
Wow.
so, from special assistant to the athletic director, I found myself in academics and then kicked over to compliance where I learned many of the concepts and bylaws as it relates to athletics compliance. And then was given the task through our interim chancellor, Flanders McClinton at the time, to really put together a unit and build a unit kind of in my own image to help facilitate that success. And so we were able to do that. We had 13 sports ineligible for postseason. Southern University has 15 sports. And so we went from 13 sports ineligible to all 15 eligible in a period of about 24
Wow.
months. So
Wow.
that kind of started my upward trajectory, if you will, in college athletics, and then transition into me being named executive AD in 2018 when we had the opportunity to really grow our base in terms of allowing our coaches now to not be dirty recruited, if you will, as related to our academic issues, and to really step out and play on an even playing field. And so I started to really encounter and engage with different elements of athletics at that point, a lot of sport administrative duties. I've overseen football and football scheduling now for the better part of about 7 or 8 years. So every schedule that we made. I know you heard the announcement today of the Fresno State game. That was
Yeah.
actually the last contract that I completed as a staff member over at Southern. And so having that opportunity and also, being thrust into the leadership role as an executive AD allowed me the ability to work in other areas, right? Corporate sponsorships, marketing, development, social media, in addition to academics, compliance, sport oversight, and game day operations staffs together. And so from 2018 to 2019, there were some opportunities that came available at other institutions. I was mentioned in several of them. I had an opportunity to go to an institution, then kind of thought better of it and came back, and then I was immediately elevated to deputy athletic director and
Wow.
chief operating officer. In addition to that, we've also had several opportunities. Obviously, when you have an opportunity or the crisis that was some of the issues that we faced with regard to the NCAA,
Right.
that allowed us to really develop relationships with the NCAA brass and have them to have an understanding of the plight that is HBCUs as it relates to being able to have adequate resources to perform at an adequate level, right? And so through those relationships, I was able to do and undertake several of the NCAA major programming for minorities in sports and minorities in upper level athletic administration. And so I was able to achieve or attend rather the NCAA Dr. Charles Whitcomb Leadership Institute, Effective Facilitation, Sports Management Institute, which is outside of the NCAA, but it's an executive leadership program. And then to where I just completed the NCAA's Pathways program, which is a program designed for upper level administrators about 2 years away from the AD's chair. And so my class, I'm very
Wow.
proud that my class now has produced 6 directors of athletics throughout our term in the program over the past year. And so with those experiences, I'm very excited to be a part of the Grambling State University family. I'm very excited to be a part of the history and the tradition and the pageantry of what this G signifies that I'm wearing on my chest. I'm so excited and so ready to get started. You know, I've had meetings every day, and I was
Wow.
laughing with President Gallo this morning. We're going to do 100 meetings in 100 days, but like I told him, those meetings will be in person. So, you know, when I get to campus full time here at the beginning of August, we're going to undertake an aggressive agenda on fundraising, galvanizing our base, bringing our legends together. Bringing our legends together with our current student athletes and having them to develop an understanding of how important it is to wear that G on your chest as well.
Now I can tell you, you can write a book about a memoir or something about your career when you do retire. I can tell you that. So you coming from Southern, Dr. Scott, going to Grambling. You know their rivals. Talk about the rivalry and what it's gonna mean to the people there at Grambling that you're there now. And I know you still got friends over at Southern. How is that experience gonna be?
Well, it's going to be different, but the goal is the same, to win. And so, obviously, I spoke of it earlier about my experiences on the Southern University campus as a son of Southern. But hey, again, this G is on my chest. I look
You there, Dr. Scott?
opportunity to compete and win and beat Southern. That's the expectation, right? And so, the funny thing is, throughout my tenure at Southern, one of the biggest things that the biggest variables that I used to evaluate coaches was their ability to beat Grambling, and so that's not going to change. And one of the biggest variables that I use to evaluate our coaching staff at the G, I love that, is to beat Southern, and so, but not just to beat Southern, but to beat everybody else. And so, we're going to go and we're going to try to develop a culture, an inclusive culture, surrounded by winning, and not just winning on the field, but winning in the classroom, winning in the community. And part of beating Southern and having one more point than your opponent, all of our opponents, is going to be paramount for us to be able to change the culture and facilitate that success.
Now, Dr. Scott, you know the NCAA has just passed name, likeness, and image. What are you guys?
Mhm.
I know you coming from Southern, but what have you been able to look at some of the doctrine that Grambling has in place for your student athletes?
So I have, and the neat thing about that is, I worked in conjunction with Stephanie Remp and the staff at Louisiana State University to develop a name, image, and likeness policy that Southern University Board of Supervisors are going to approve in the next couple of weeks. The neat thing about Grambling State University is they're part of the UL system, and so they already have a name, image, and likeness policy
Okay.
that's very similar to the one that we were able to create. And so, from my vantage point, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for our student athletes to be able to utilize their name, their images, and their likenesses, obviously for financial gain. But it also gives us an opportunity to teach our student athletes those soft skills as it relates to money management, time
Right.
management, and fiscal responsibility. The second thing that it does, especially for us, is that it allows us to bring our student athletes together and talk about how important maintaining that adequate imagery is, right? And so, for me, that involves cleaning up your social media pages, right? Watching some of the things that you post, watching
That's
some of the
right.
things that you repost, because companies and organizations who want to utilize your name, image, and likeness are going to see that. The second part
Right.
of that is having a marketing and a sports information and media relations staff put together to maximize our student athletes' name, image, and likeness, right? To be able to utilize that imagery, utilize their social media handles for their benefit. I think if we're able to do those things, obviously within the confines of the name, image, and likeness policy, as well as the NCAA's policy on extra benefits, then we should be fine. But we're going to make sure that we can maximize our student athletes' ability to market themselves, and in turn, that'll help us market Grambling State University athletics as well.
Now, one thing, I tell young kids before they even get to college, your social media and all that stuff, that's your brand. I mean, that's your
It is.
name. So, here at the college level with the name, image and likeness, you're going to be speaking for that particular company, whoever endorses you. So you got to uphold everything. So they're going to be watching everything you do. It's almost as if they're professional athletes at this point, even though they're in college. But another thing too, how's it going to feel now to welcome all the fans back? You guys can have 100% capacity now, dealing with the COVID situation. Even though COVID is still here and the new variants there, how are you guys going to approach going, into the stadium, into your sports arenas?
Well, obviously, I think first and foremost is we're going to operate, like you said, as if COVID never went away. Um,
Right.
Obviously, with the vaccination process and the many different vaccinations that we have now, we got the ability to, to become vaccinated. But for us, it's just like anything else. You can't look at someone and tell that they've been vaccinated. So we have to
Right.
operate in a space that would allow us to be caution, obviously, to take caution rather, to be able to have those hand sanitization stations, and to be able to have some level of social distancing in our concession lines and our restrooms, and then again be able to utilize things that we can control. We can control the kickoff times. We can control when when science says that the that COVID is least affected, right? And so we've got the ability to adjust game times to minimize the exposure, while keeping our safety of our student athletes, our fans, and all who are involved in the game operation as well. And so, we're going to operate at 100%
Yeah.
capacity, but we're going to do so safely. We're going to do so in accordance with the state of Louisiana's safety procedures and the CDC's safety procedures as it relates to COVID. And we're going to have a good time, and we're going to cheer the Tigers on to victory. So I'm very excited about that as well. I hadn't seen a game in the whole for about 15, 20 years when I was a student athlete. And so, I get an opportunity now to be able to witness it, to be able to, again, to see a game at Eddie G. Robinson Stadium, and to enjoy the many legends that we have, and to watch our student athletes engage in battle.
Real quick, two more things, Doctor. So you guys are going to, you said you was going to be bringing in your legends, Hall of Famers from Grambling. Matter of fact, I know in my area down here by Mobile area, Wilmer Sigler was a baseball player there at Grambling. I spoke with him on yesterday, and I told him that I'll be speaking to you today. So they just crowned those guys this past weekend. So I should be getting ready to probably interview him sometime this weekend, and that's a great thing because I actually went to the high school where he taught and coached at, and here I am, one of his former students, going to actually interview him something where he did when he was our age. So that was something good. And lastly, if you have kids that are about to graduate, about to play at whatever college sport they want to play in, what would you tell those kids coming into this new day and age and era that we're in now with athletic sports?
Well, I think it's simple. Work your butts off. Prepare yourself. Obviously, there's a physical component of sport, but prepare yourself mentally. Prepare yourself for the grind. Prepare yourself academically. Obviously, our number one mission is to educate our student athletes and win championships. They go hand in hand. They're not one and two. They're not 1A and 1B. They're one and one. But aside from that, understand that you are a brand. Understand, like I said earlier, how to harness that brand, and by doing that, you pay attention to many of the things that you would normally have to pay attention to as it relates to, again, your social media and things of that nature, and give these coaches a reason to recruit you. Obviously, you find talent, in many different areas. Character is a high part of that as well, and so give coaches a reason to recruit you. Sometimes it's not about how good you are. Sometimes as an athlete, sometimes it's about those other variables as well. And so preparing yourself adequately, physically, mentally, as well as understanding the backside of that, especially with the name, image, and likeness legislation, is huge. And then just putting yourself in a position and performing the best you can while you're out there. Are all things that I would encourage athletes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Grambling State University new VP of Intercollegiate Athletics, Dr. Trayveon Scott. Thank you for coming on Network today, sir.
Anytime. And listen, if you would send me that number, I would be more than happy to reach out. Obviously, like I said, I've had conversations with several of our legends, from Doug Williams to Mike Williams to Coach Ellis and in between. And so I've been reaching out. Like I said, I'm actually at a dinner meeting now. We're going to continue to reach out and try to bring our former student athletes back to engage with our legends and to push Grambling athletics forward. So I'm very excited about the opportunity. I'm very excited about the challenge, and hopefully we can move it forward and win some championships, graduate some student athletes, and bring Grambling back to business.
All right, yes, sir. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming on the network.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.